I knew the night was going to be a disaster the moment I saw the centerpiece. A 6-foot glass column filled with water, lit from below in sterile white, holding a floating anatomical heart like a trophy. It was beautiful in the way a scalpel is beautiful, precise, expensive, and cold. Northwell Summit Health loved symbols like that, the kind that made donors feel important while everyone else quietly cleaned up the mess. I stood near the bar with a club soda in my hand, the lime untouched. I didn't drink at work events, not because I was virtuous, because I was paid to notice things. Loose cords near the stage, a catering cart blocking a fire exit, a donor who looked unsteady on her heels. Risk doesn't announce itself. It waits for someone to look away. That was my job. Chief Risk and Compliance Officer. A title that sounded powerful until you watched how people treated you at parties like this. Like the building's smoke detector. Useful, necessary, and ignored until it started screaming. The ballroom in Providence glittered with old money and new philanthropy. Men in tuxedos who talked about community impact like it was a stock option. Women with smiles that didn't reach their eyes, holding flutes of champagne the way they held their husbands. Delicately, possessively, and with practice. Then the doors opened, and the temperature in the room shifted. Dr. Marcus Hale arrived, as if the building had been waiting to inhale him. Founding surgical director, media darling, the kind of surgeon who gave interviews about saving lives, while the rest of us quietly prevented federal investigations. He didn't walk so much as glide, powered by ego and applause. Velvet tuxedo jacket, because, of course. A small orbit of people around him. 2 residents with tight faces, and an administrative assistant, Ethan Cole, who looked like he'd volunteer to hold Hale's coat and his conscience at the same time. I watched him for a moment. Not with awe, but with the detached attention you give a storm warning. Hale's laugh boomed across the room. Someone handed him a drink. He accepted it like a king accepting tribute. And then his gaze locked on me. Predators always notice the one person who doesn't flinch. He moved through the crowd, donors parting instinctively. When he reached me, he didn't greet me. He didn't even look at me first. His eyes flicked past my shoulder to a woman in pearls, measuring her like a potential donation. "Evelyn," he said finally, pronouncing my name like an inconvenience. "Dr. Hale," I replied, voice neutral. The kind of calm you use right before you shut down a department spending account. He took a slow sip of champagne, then lowered the glass and looked around as if searching for a waiter. He couldn't find one. So he turned back to me and held the empty flute out. "Dear," he said, loudly enough for the donors closest to us to hear. "Take this and throw it away, would you? And tell the caterers the shrimp's rubbery. Chop chop, nurse." The word landed in the air like something rotten. A donor's wife blinked, confused. One of the residents stared at the floor. Ethan's mouth twitched like he was trying not to laugh. I have immense respect for nurses. They run the hospital. Hale didn't mean it that way. He was using the word like a leash, stripping away my role, my authority, my years of saving this place from its own arrogance, reducing me to someone who existed to serve him. My hand didn't move. I didn't take the glass. I let him hold it there, arm extended, a statue of entitlement. I let the silence stretch until it grew uncomfortable, until the donors shifted and coughed and suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to stand. Then I smiled. Sweet, controlled, surgical. "I think you've confused me with someone who works for you," I said gently. I'm sure you can find a bin.
You've always been good at disposing of things you don't understand.
His eyes sharpened. His mouth opened, ready to cut. I didn't wait for the next insult. I turned and walked away, heel steady on the marble floor. With every step, the heat of anger cooled into something cleaner. Rage is loud. Rage is messy. What settled in my chest was quieter, colder. Like a judge signing a warrant. In the elevator, alone at last, I watched my reflection in the mirrored wall. Calm face, steady eyes, club soda still in hand. "If you want the trash taken out, Marcus," I whispered as the doors slid shut, "you should have been careful what you called me." People assume that silence means surrender. They mistake restraint for weakness, composure for fear. Marcus Hale had made that mistake for 11 years, and he wasn't alone. Institutions are built on it, the belief that the people who keep things running are interchangeable, invisible, and grateful just to be allowed in the room. I learned early not to correct them. The nickname started in my second year at Northwell Summit Health. I wasn't there when it was first said, which made it spread faster. Compliance girl. Not to my face. Never to my face. Men like Hale preferred their cruelty indirect, deniable. It floated through conference rooms and operating lounges, whispered when I walked past with my tablet tucked to my chest. Compliance girl. Paperwork. Rules. Buzzkill. Hale once leaned back in a department meeting, boots up on a polished table that cost more than my first car, and said, "We save lives here. We don't need permission slips from people who've never held a scalpel." People laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was safer than silence. I didn't laugh. I wrote the date down when I got back to my office. That was a thing they never noticed. I never reacted in the moment. I never stormed out. I never cried in the bathroom or filed complaints that vanished into HR black holes staffed by people who believed in mediation and scented candles. I went home. I documented. Emails saved as PDFs. Calendar invites cross-checked against surgical logs. Expense approvals that didn't make sense unless you assumed everyone was lying. I didn't know exactly what I was collecting at first. I only knew it mattered. Patterns always do. Hale treated rules like background noise. Hand-washing guidelines were suggestions. Billing codes were flexible. Consent forms were someone else's problem. And every time something went wrong, a post-op infection, a near miss in the OR, it somehow landed on administrative failure. On people like me. Once, after a complication that never should have happened, Hale stormed into my office unannounced and dropped a patient file on my desk. "Fix this," he snapped. "Make it clean." I looked at the chart. Notes had been altered, times adjusted, a missing signature where one should have been. "That would be falsifying records," I said calmly. He smiled. Not kindly. "That's why you exist, Evelyn. To make problems go away." I watched him leave. Then I copied the file. At night, my apartment was quiet. No clutter. Neutral colors. A place where nothing could accuse me of chaos. I would sit at my kitchen table with my laptop open, the city lights of Providence blinking outside the window like distant signals. I built my own system, encrypted, redundant, boring by design. The kind of digital filing cabinet no one ever asked about because it wasn't flashy. Every insult became a timestamp. Every joke a data point. Every corner cut a breadcrumb. I wasn't angry all the time. That's the myth people tell themselves to feel better about being cruel. Most days, I felt patient. Focused. Almost serene. Because when you stop reacting, you start seeing. I saw how Hale billed for surgeries he barely attended, how conferences lined up neatly with luxury travel, how junior doctors learned very quickly what questions not to ask. I saw how power protected itself by assuming no one was watching closely enough to challenge it. They were wrong. On the night of the gala, back in my apartment, I didn't pour a drink or pace the floor. I changed into comfortable clothes, fed my cat, and opened my laptop like I had 100 times before. The familiar blue glow filled the room. I didn't open the old folders. Those were archives now. History waiting for context. Instead, I created a new one. Internal Review, MH. I stared at the empty directory for a long moment, fingers resting lightly on the keyboard. People think revenge is loud, explosive, emotional. The truth is quieter. The truth is that some endings are written long before anyone realizes the story has changed. The call came 3 days later, just after 7 a.m. I was already awake. People like me tend to be. Crises rarely wait for convenient hours. "Evelyn," Richard Calloway said without preamble. "Chairman of the board." His voice sounded tight, like a man trying to hold a door shut with one shoulder. "We have a situation." I let him talk. The hospital administrator had resigned overnight, effective immediately. Financial irregularities, personal issues. A statement that said everything and nothing at the same time. What mattered was the vacuum it left behind. "We can't afford instability," Calloway continued. "The state auditors are circling. Donors are sensitive. We need someone steady. Someone who knows where the risk lives. Someone boring, he meant. Someone who wouldn't draw headlines." "I see," I said. "We'd like you to step in as interim administrator." The word interim hovered between us, careful and temporary. Power with an expiration date. Offered only because they believed I'd use it to clean up messes, not question who made them. "I'll need conditions," I replied. A pause. "Such as?" "Unrestricted access," I said evenly. "Financials, vendor contracts, surgical logs, personnel files. I report directly to you. No departmental vetoes." "That will upset some people," Calloway said. "I'm aware." Another pause, longer this time. I imagined him glancing at spreadsheets, legal memos, the quiet math of disaster. Finally, a sigh. "Fine, but keep it contained. We don't want panic." We ended the call. 10 minutes later, my badge access changed. Doors opened that hadn't before. Systems stopped asking me to justify myself. I didn't go to the administrator's office right away. Instead, I walked the halls. People sensed the shift immediately. You can feel it when authority moves, like pressure changing before a storm. Conversations lowered. Smiles sharpened into something more cautious. Marcus Hale did not smile at all. He intercepted me outside the elevators, arms crossed, posture radiating displeasure. "This is a mistake," he said. "No greeting, no pretense. Administration should not interfere with clinical leadership." "I'm not interfering," I replied. "I'm overseeing." "You're a paper pusher," he snapped. "You don't understand how this place actually works." I met his gaze, calm as ever. "Then this should be easy for you." He stared at me for a moment, clearly deciding whether to escalate. Then he scoffed and walked away, confident as a man who believed the ground beneath him was permanent. I watched his back disappear down the corridor. That afternoon, I unlocked the administrator's office. Mahogany desk, City view. A room designed to project control rather than practice it. I closed the door behind me and stood still, listening to the quiet. This wasn't a promotion. It was access. And access, in the right hands, was the most dangerous thing in the building. Power doesn't announce itself when it shifts. It settles in quietly, like dust. By the time people notice, it's already everywhere. With administrator access, the hospital revealed itself the way bodies do under proper imaging. Layers, shadows, hidden fractures no one wanted to acknowledge. I started where money always tells the truth. Discretionary accounts. The surgical division's budget looked healthy at first glance. Too healthy. Clean lines, rounded numbers, approvals that moved faster than policy allowed. I followed one vendor payment, then another, and then a third that didn't belong anywhere near medical supply chains. A consulting firm with a forgettable name, offshore registration, invoices vague enough to be useless and specific enough to be dangerous. $620,000 over 3 years. Conference fees, educational logistics, emergency consulting. I cross-checked dates. Every charge aligned neatly with Marcus Hale's professional travel. St. Bart's, Zurich, Aspen. Medicine, apparently, required excellent beaches. One expense alone wouldn't have mattered. An error can be explained away. A pattern cannot. Then I found the chart. A post-op complication from 6 months earlier. Young patient. Routine procedure. Severe outcome. The notes didn't match the nursing logs. A timestamp had been altered. A surgeon listed as present who had billed for another operation across town. Ghost surgery. I leaned back in my chair and let the silence stretch. This wasn't just misconduct. This was exposure. The kind that doesn't end with a resignation. It ends with subpoenas. The hallway confrontation happened the next morning. Marcus was shouting. Not raised voice, shouting. At a junior surgeon half his age, her face pale beneath the fluorescent lights. Nurses froze mid-chart. Patients turned their heads. "Are you trying to kill someone?" he barked. "Or are you just incompetent?" I stepped between them before I thought better of it. "Dr. Hale," I said clearly, "this is a patient care area. Lower your voice." He turned on me like I'd interrupted a performance. "Go file something," he sneered. "That's what you're good at." The old version of me might have swallowed that. The interim administrator didn't. "Monica," I said, turning to HR, who stood frozen nearby. "Please document this interaction. Verbatim." Marcus laughed, sharp and dismissive. "You think notes scare me?" I didn't answer. That afternoon, I met with Monica in my office. She looked nervous, tapping her pen against her notebook. "You're building a case," she said quietly. I shook my head. "No, I'm building an ending." By the end of the week, legal had questions they couldn't ignore. Finance had discrepancies they couldn't smooth over. And Marcus Hale, brilliant, untouchable Marcus, kept doing exactly what he always did. Which was the point. Traps only work when the person inside them believes they're still in control. The board meeting was scheduled for Monday morning, the kind held before coffee had a chance to soften bad news. The room was too cold, deliberately so. 12 people sat around the polished table. Investors, executives, names engraved on plaques and wings. I took the seat at the head without asking. No one stopped me. I didn't start with opinions. I started with numbers, projected liability, regulatory exposure, endowment risk. Slide after slide, clean and unadorned. When the invoices appeared, offshore accounts, duplicated billing codes. The color drained from a few faces. When the altered chart came up, someone actually swore under their breath. "If this becomes public," I said calmly, "we lose donor confidence overnight. If the state opens an investigation, we're looking at 8 figures in penalties. If we self-report now, we control the damage." Silence. Finally, Richard Calloway spoke. "What do you recommend?" I closed the binder. "A voluntary retirement. Immediate, non-disclosure, full repayment, no press. And if he refuses?" "Then we escalate." They exchanged looks. No one liked the word escalate. It meant attention, headlines, questions. "He won't refuse," I said. "He cares about his reputation more than anything." They voted without drama. The decision was unanimous. The gala that evening unfolded like theater. Crystal glasses, soft music, familiar donors. Marcus Hale arrived late, confident as ever, already mid-laugh as he worked the room. I waited until he reached the center. "Dr. Hale," I said, stepping into his line of sight. He smiled, lazy and condescending. "Evelyn, playing administrator tonight?" I held out the folder. "What's this?" He scoffed. "Your retirement." The smile slipped. "Just a fraction. You don't have the authority." "I do," I said. "As of this morning, your privileges have been suspended pending review." His voice dropped. "This is a mistake." "No," I replied gently. "This is documentation." He glanced around. The donors were watching now. The board members stood close enough to hear. The exits were farther away than they'd been a moment ago. I leaned in, lowering my voice. "You can sign and leave with your pension intact. Or you can refuse, and I make a phone call." For the first time, he saw me. Not as background noise, not as paperwork, but as consequence. His hand shook as he signed. Security appeared, quiet, professional. They escorted him toward the doors, while the room pretended nothing unusual was happening. Music resumed. Glasses clinked. The next morning, the hospital felt lighter. Nurses laughed. Schedules ran on time. The reserved parking spot disappeared. I walked through the lobby and noticed a discarded coffee cup near the entrance. I picked it up and dropped it into the bin myself. Power doesn't shout. It documents.